Welcome to the Higher Self Habits podcast, where astrology meets behavioral psychology. Join me, your host, Angela Xavier, and together let's dive into all things astrology, how to align your mindset with your birth chart, and so much more. My intention with this podcast is to inspire you with strategies, tools, and teachings that you need to consistently get after your goals with flow and ease. Your higher self is already doing so. And after all, you are what you repeatedly do. I am so happy to have you here with me, so thank you so much for being here. Now let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Higher Self Habits podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely and productive day. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the sun. So a deep dive into some astrology that I can't wait to get into. And my intention with this podcast is to teach you the core of what the sun's energy represents. Because as you begin to apply astrology as a mindset tool, it's important to have a solid knowledge base first. And that is something I want to provide for you. I want you to have a deep understanding of what the planets represent, what the signs represent, and then you can then interpret it in whatever way you begin to lead your own birth chart as a mindset strategy. So, with that being said, I want to preface how we're going to learn astrology. And what I mean by that is it's best to learn astrology as studying behavior patterns. So rather than it being something you have to believe in, like anytime we talk about the stars, it goes woo-woo and it's something you believe in, when truly it's just thousands of years of collected data on how people behave that was then compared to where the planets were at that time. So from here on out, just see it as a way to explore why people do the things that they do. So if astrology is just simply studying behavior patterns, the planets in astrology represent what experience you are having that influences you to behave in that way. So let's get into the experiences then that the sun rules. First off, it's important to know that the sun takes up 98% of our solar system. So this burning ball of energy that we all revolve around, that gives us life and never stops shining, like no matter where you are in the world, you're still being shined on the sun. We're all getting influence from the sun rays, even if it's bouncing off the moon, right? So in astrology then, if we look at how it has to do with our behavior, the sun is like the head honcho, the star of the chart. Like it is important to look at because it's craving the attention for us to do so. So let's give it what it's asking for. Okay. One thing to note as well too, when we talk about planets in astrology, technically the sun as well as the moon aren't planets. So in astrology, they're called the luminaries, like luminescent, right? They shine. But just to keep it easy, we sink them into the category of planets being something that rules the experiences in our life. So it has the same connotation as the rest of the planets, but there's a lot more weight on how they actually determine our behavior when it comes to the sun as well as the moon. But for today's sake, we're talking about the sun. Being so big and so bright as it is, the sun loves attention. And how this translates is the sun rules all experiences to do with our conscious mind, how we make choices, how we exert our free will in this life. Now, other planets do drive our behavior, right? But it is the sun that allows us to be conscious of this behavior and choose whether or not to apply it. This conscious awareness we have when we realize what we're doing and get into why we're doing it is a transformation in itself, right? This awareness and this transformation is what gives us this knowledge of who we're being, and then therefore the choice to grow, to do something different, or to stay the same. Just in saying that, you can feel how much power, right, this type of experience has over us. And this is all the domain of the sun's energy. Now, these choices we make, whether to grow or to choose to stay the same, This is what determines our story, right? Our life. And when we look at it this way, the sun can then be seen as the main character. So there's a lot of this type of work out there in the self-development spiritual world of like main character energy. See that as your sun sign. See that as the sun's energy in astrology. So how you lead your personality, how the world sees you, right? The daytime is the sun's energy. And when you desire something on this plot of your lifeline, of the story you're unfolding, the sun's energy is also how you employ yourself, how you have the desire of will to actually go get it. And this plot that's unfolding as you make choices in your main character energy, a common phrase that you will find in a lot of astrology books about the sun is the hero's journey. So to look at your sun sign as your hero's journey. And this is the story, the journey of choosing to face your dragons or not, right? And in the process, having a great personal evolution, the personal strength to fight the dragons, to choose who you desire to become. This energy, this vibe is the sun's ruling experience of discovering the self. And in short, what does that really mean, right? The self. To understand what is you and what has been programmed for you to believe it is you, right? So when we look at why we do the things we do and we have this inner itch to change, what we're changing, is this truly you? Or is this what you've been programmed to believe is you by your culture, by your parenting, by society, etc.? And the sun represents the experience of unraveling that. And as we unravel that, we become more and more tuned into who we truly are. Because making the choices in accordance to that, we are becoming them as a result, right? So the sun is your authentic radiance, how you shine your light, the special power, the special gifts you're here to give to the world, how you express yourself through your authentic life path, and ultimately the development of the self, your self-development. And it's important to remember too, life's a journey. And the sun is the constant reminder, the constant conscious lens in your mind, craving all that attention, that reminds you that you can always try again. We're given thousands of choices in our day, and it's our responsibility to try again. So the sun, in its essence, is the container for your highest potential. And it's always radiating somewhere inside of you, telling you what you could be, the right choice, the path that is most in alignment with the inner calling of your authentic self. So we're going to segue a little bit here and talk about this overall journey of becoming, which brings us to the next point of another archetype the sun represents, which is the father. Now, in speaking here, we're talking about the idealistic father, the one who inspires and supports you to leave the nest, okay? And this father represents our paternal energy in our life. And what I find fascinating, which you will find I do all the time, is get to the root word of things to really understand the meaning of that explanation in the first place. So paternal energy, the root word of paternal is pattern, which is interesting because when we think of the father's influence on us, it is the pattern, the genetic DNA that's passed down to you, which is also representing the pattern of the path, the direction that your main character follows during its story as the plot unfolds, the path out of the nest. It's the inner calling that leads you with its light in the direction of truly discovering the self outside of the nest, outside of the predisposed beliefs that you are meant to unravel. Like, isn't that just so cool? I love the sun so much. Sorry, okay. Going on. And this leadership element, this leading quality, is an assertive masculine energy. Now, anytime I discuss masculine or feminine energy, I'm speaking solely about the expression of energy. Masculine asserts and feminine attracts, okay? I'm not talking about any gender specifications or men and women. Men can have a lot of feminine energy and women can have a lot of masculine. It's simply about an expression of energy here. And the sun is the driver of your masculine energy. So mentioned earlier, other planets drive behavior, but you can only be conscious of it through the sun. Mars in particular is like our masculine muscle. It's the purity of the action-oriented, assertive, and domineering, like forceful energy, but it's the sun that gives it direction. So Mars is deemed as a nocturnal planet and therefore needs the diurnal influence, the daytime, the actual light and direction of the sun to make something of it. So to be the driver of your will to leave the nest and lead your life. And the directions are your sun, the sun sign, the placement, the aspects, everything in between when you really learn and lean into understanding how to embody your chart's placement as a mindset strategy. So far, we've gotten to so much like, yes, energy, leading your life, main character vibes, all the great things like self-development. But really, when you get down to it and want to apply this, you have to ask yourself, why do you even want to leave the nest in the first place? What is your why, the reason why? What is the purpose of that? So leading now into the fact that purpose is also the sun's domain. The sun represents our purpose in life and the lessons that we must learn as a result. It is both the main character as well as the plot of the story. Right? Isn't that cool? The purpose and lessons that we are here to fulfill. It's the potential of what your sun sign could be. For an unbalanced Libra or a Cancer with no relationship with their intuition, right? Their mission, their purpose is to lean into the lessons of what's required to develop those innate, full potential aspects of those signs. It's what it's meant for them to develop, right? So again, the sun is the calling and the direction of how to leave the nest, while also being the identity and the personality of who the main character is as you consciously choose to develop in the sun's direction or not. The choice is always yours, right? The planets don't rule our lives, free will does. And it's about studying astrology again as behavior patterns, the decisions and the choices we make, rather than believing that they are the rulers of our lives. So to choose the direction, to choose the identity that is fulfilled or not, that's up to you. And that is where we get into the juicy bits of working with the sun's energy as a mindset strategy. Because the sun, again, having this duality element of the path and the main character, the sun is both your higher self and your ego. Your higher self being that soulful, driven inner connection who knows the best choice and where it's best for you to lead next, as well as your ego, as well as this identity that you've established and made your life mean something about you, that you have to choose to either listen to and stay small, stuck in the nest, or choose the other path and leave and grow and lead yourself out of the comfort zone. And having the sun represent both of these expressions, all in all, what we're looking at is where they come together, where they meet. Because we have this part of ourself, the higher self, calling us to fulfill a potential, and the ego that has to work the conscious choices of the day-to-day to get out of our own way to actually go down that path. Where they meet is the self, is our mission to fulfill. And the character that you establish as you answer this inner calling to go down your authentic path is to choose your identity over and over and over and over again. And through these choices, we are bringing our higher self to life, the main character with the plot we desire to life. So this is bringing us next to another explanation of the sun, which is best represented through the ancient symbol. Now, the symbol of the sun, if you are not familiar, it is a circle with a dot in the center. And this ancient symbol is a great explanation of the self, of your higher self and your ego working together to create the identity and the plot that you desire. Symbolically, whenever you see a circle, what it represents is energy. It represents the fact that energy is infinite, it's never ending, as a circle is, right? This coincides with that never-ending vitality, the force that shines and shines, the inner calling that's begging you to fulfill its potential, right? Our energy, our soul, our higher self. Now, in this context, if we were just this energy, we would be floating around in space, right? We wouldn't be here in the 3D realm. And that's what is requiring the dot in the center, our ego, our identity, our main character energy. The point that we assert our desire of will through to actually be able to actualize the potential, to make a 3D impact. So it's about choosing through that center dot over and over and over again, while being in connection to this higher consciousness, to this desire to fulfill a higher purpose foretold by our higher self. And now again, with this symbol up and running seamlessly, you have this, unyielding connection with the higher self, and your ego is always acting in accordance to it, which is not always the case, right? We're human for a reason. We don't always make the best choices, and that's the part of life that we learn the lesson to make a better choice next time, right? So this unraveling, this becoming then, is to be connected, to use your conscious lens, employ the sun's energy, to connect with asking, who are you making these choices as, right? The higher self who is here to challenge the fear of you leaving your comfort zone, or the ego who piles on the excuses to make you feel threatened as you try to leave. So taking your sun sign and using the positive and negative characteristics, okay? For example, an Aries can be extremely assertive, aggressive, bullying almost, right? Selfish. The other side of the spectrum is someone who's extremely generous, someone who's a leader, someone who's a trailblazer, bold, courageous, feels the fear and does it anyway. You can then employ, right, this spectrum as the positive traits being your higher self, the negative traits being your ego, and choosing to act in accordance to which one is in best service of you, which is an obvious answer there, right? That is self-development, higher self-development. Ultimately, what you're doing is unraveling and fulfilling the potential that you are here to be, right? As you employ yourself, the authentic, juicy, true version of yourself. I feel like I could talk on and on and on about the sun. It's just so fulfilling to even dive into these concepts and see life differently and more positive, right? Like, the world is your oyster, go big or go home energy that just feels radiant, refreshing, all those things. I want to simmer down a little bit now on the spiritual aspects of the sun and get more into the fundamentals of the sun. So here I'm talking about the planets and the houses it represents and the Greek gods that the sun's energy aligns with. So in the fundamentals of astrology, there are three main components: the planets, the signs, and the houses. And as you dive into understanding the energy of each, it's important to know that the signs have a ruling planet and a ruling house. In other words, they have a influential energy on each other. They're more similar in nature. And when you learn which ones coincide with each other, you are better able to understand them as a whole. Which is why I wanted to offer this information today, to begin seeing your chart as a whole and how these energies that relate to each other show up for you. All right, so the sign that is ruled by the sun is Leo. And when you think of Leo energy, first of all, it is a fixed fire sign. Fixed being the stubborn energy, the persistent energy, the energy that perseveres to see the project through, right? Being a fire sign, this is also relatable to the sun, a giant ball of fire, and it being fixed means the shine never stops. So this is relative to the core of Leo energy, the leader. And it's the leader that rules. It's this royalty energy, as the sun also kind of holds the title. Look at me, I'm the center of our solar system kind of vibes. Also, Leo has the infamous tendency to be the entertainer, to have all eyes on me, be the center of the show, which resembles this essence, this pure nature to shine. And this shine comes from the innermost value to be proud, to show up and be their most authentic expression. And in the name of that, inspire others to do the same, lead others to do. Now, the sun and Leo are all in rulership with the 5th house. And in astrology, houses, they represent areas of our life. The 5th house represents the areas of life that have to do with our creativity, our self-expression, our hobbies, and the interests we have that just allow us to be ourselves, to let go and think of nothing else than what we're focused on, because it's that like spiritual, that fire that comes over ourselves that's all captivating, right? And this comes also in the essence of our sexuality. So it's not this, let's procreate to live on our species. It's this creativity and self-expression to enjoy sexuality, to really lean into that and explore it. This also is the house of children. And it's children in the speak of our inner child, like our innermost things that set us free, that we truly enjoy. And I love to see this energy out in the world. As you can see, all the energies of astrology out in the world. But this one in particular is when, you see a child like 7 or 8 years old, and they're just walking and being silly and then just like randomly scream, or like, what I mean? Randomly dance, randomly say something crazy. That is this like sun energy, this Leo quality that is just like full encompassing, here to play energy. I just noticed here in my notes, I wrote how kids just don't give a shit. Because it truly is that, the sun representing life itself. It's all just getting to the core of who you are and just not giving a shit. A lot of older people in my life, they say that, like, the older you get, you just release this idea that other people's opinions matter and you truly understand who you are, right? You become closer and closer to yourself. Oh, I love that. Now I want to get into other areas where the sun is happy, because when you look at that in your chart, you can see how they tell a deeper story and a more understanding for you to use it as a mindset. So the sun, the planet of the sun, the luminary, is exalted in Aries. So what that means is whenever there is a relationship with the sign of Aries, it has this positive influence. It has this energy that is just like turns on immediately, and it's all guns a-blazing, happy to do so. And what happens in this type of connection is willpower flows. Your leadership element is just second nature. You have this confidence and vitality that represents itself freely. Another relationship to look at is the sun with the 9th house. So the 9th house is the area of life that rules higher learning. any type of spiritual study. So religion, what you're doing here, listening to a podcast on astrology, you are in your 9th house currently. Welcome. Any type of travel you do, so far distance travel. And encompassing all of these type of activities, what we're really looking at is experiences you have that allow you to take what you learn as a lesson, to embody that lesson, to then call it wisdom because you've gone through it, right? Like you are a changed person as a result of the activities you experience, right? And this is discovering the self again, right? Seeing different facets of higher learning or spirituality, who we are in a traveling situation, all of those things. So when you have the sun in a relationship with the 9th house, we're also talking about this element of Jupiter coming in. Jupiter rules the 9th house. And this is the sun's greatest ally. So it kind of just really blows this desire to discover who you are out of the water, to go all in and really lose yourself as you find yourself in the process. So that is another relationship to look at in your chart as a positive influence of the sun. Now, which I also love to talk about, is where the vibes of the sun came from in the first place, right? Because astrology is a study that is thousands of years old. So where did the archetypes come from? Specifically speaking, with the sun, we're looking at the Greek gods Helios and Apollo. So Helios is the god of the sun, and he is more encapsulating like the sun as a representation, like he is the sun. And when we get into Apollo, you'll see how there's a difference here. With Helios, he had a carriage of horses in the sky, and his job as the god of the time was to pull the sun through the sky. So the reason why we have day and night to the ancient Greeks, is because the Greek god Helios pulled the sun through the sky with his horse and carriage. Now, as time progressed, Apollo kind of took more of the reign over representing the energy of the sun. Apollo is the god of music, the god of prophecy, the god of light and healing, and the god of children. So, fun fact, Artemis and Apollo are twins, okay? And their mother, Leto, when she birthed her twins, Artemis came out first and actually helped her mother deliver her brother Apollo. Typical story about womenhood. And in that process, Leto became the goddess of motherhood, of labor and delivery. And Artemis and Apollo became the gods and goddess of protecting children. So it's this element again, right, that comes back to this children don't give a shit kind of energy. And that is why Apollo is tied into representing the sun. Now, god of music, this is specifically speaking to that creative self-expression energy, right? There's actually really cool studies. I wish I had the statements to back it up where it's found, but take a Google, take a Jonder. When we are practicing music, so playing guitar, playing piano, singing, it shows in our brain that we have the same influence on our brain as we do with meditation. So it's like this all-encompassing activity that we are solely focused on creating this music as we are solely focused on releasing all thoughts through meditation. So it's, again, this like soulful energy that just takes over, that inner energy of who you truly are to express yourself authentically comes back to Apollo being the god of music, right? And then prophecy, right? God of prophecy. This is the direction we take, leaving the nest. The god of light and healing. As we choose the higher path, we are healing those stories that have chosen this previous identity we no longer resonate with, right? So you can see when you dive into who the ancient Greeks believed their gods were and what planets they coincide with really gives you a better understanding of how to dive into your chart as a strategy. So all in all, the sun represents who you are and what you're meant to do in this life. It encourages your self-discovery, your creativity and self-expression, the joy and confidence of being seen as your authentic self and leading your life as a result of it. The placement of the sun in your chart explains a greater understanding of this and this energy for you specifically. So speaking here, the sign and the house that it is in, as well as any aspects you have with the sun. And as this podcast grows, I will be getting into more explanations of how to make this more personal. Also, I want to point out there are a number of mindset strategies that I've created on my Instagram of how to apply your sun sign as a strategy. So check that out on my page at higherself_habits. But that is a wrap on today's podcast about the sun. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you can see how deep we can get into just understanding the fundamentals of astrology and the importance of seeing all of the perspectives to then go in deeper and embody it more quickly, more potent. And if you enjoy today's podcast, I would love if you left a review, and that way I can know what you are enjoying and keep it coming your way. And until then, I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.